Tonight reveals the real reason why Andrei and Elizabeth were removed from the franchise for good. The violent incident that forced TLC to suspend production, the hidden footage, the staff complaints, and the facts the network thought you would never know. What happened as soon as the camera stopped filming in Season 9, Episode 20 shocked even the most seasoned members of the 90-Day Fiancé crew. This shaky moment significantly changed Andrei Castrovet and Elizabeth Podes's destiny with TLC. And within hours, the network began covertly preparing the documentation that would ultimately result in their permanent exclusion from the franchise. However, we have to go back in time and expose the reality that TLC never dared to broadcast on camera prior to the conflict that turned the tide before the rumors turned into formal complaints. Prior to the producers being forced to close the set and remove a few individuals from the studio, Andrei and Elizabeth were marketed for many years as two of the franchise's most couples that are erratic, combative, unpredictable, theatrical, and aggressive. Their clashes generated millions of views. Their family's turmoil kept the audience glued to the screen. Andrei's intensity and Elizabeth's strained emotions created the shock value that reality TV executives love. But the backstage environment was anything but humorous. According to team workers, filming with them was emotionally taxing, dangerous at times, and similar to operating inside a storm. Insiders expected greater chaos when production of Season 9 began, but they were unprepared for the kind of collapse that would lead to a permanent ban. At the beginning of the filming process, things definitely felt different. Andrei was reported to be less responsive to direction, more antagonistic, and more easily irritated than in previous seasons. One producer called him a ticking time bomb with a microphone connected. Elizabeth, on the other hand, seemed stiff and frequently caught between appeasing the production team and her husband. Prior to, she was often seen pacing behind her trailer and muttering into her phone before production had started. She was crying more frequently, the crew noticed. The couple's arguments were more heated, personal, and challenging to handle. The environment was far worse when the cameras weren't rolling, according to the producers. In the initial stages of production, a fight between Andrei and a field producer during a crucial scene quickly escalated to the point where security had to intervene. Andrei was just a few inches away from the. According to one source, he accused the producers of purposefully upsetting him, interfering with his story, and attempting to discredit him. The producer told management about the incident, looking shocked and afraid. TLC issued Andrew the first of many warnings and reminded him of the behavioral guidelines he had agreed to in his contract. But according to insiders, the admonition only made him more defiant. Despite the problems, the show went on. TLC believed they could handle the issue due to the excellent ratings. They had dealt with difficult cast members before, but they had never met a duo that consistently challenged the authority of the production crew. While filming, the level of tension rose gradually but steadily. Everyone on the team could feel it, like steam under a closed lid. They all knew that the gentleman was coming. The crucial moment occurred during a long mid-season recording day when Andrei claimed his microphone pack was causing pain in his back and refused to put it on. The sabotage audio crew. But he allegedly threw the microphone on the ground, shattering it, when production asked him to. The audio technician filed an incident report after making an effort to retrieve the equipment, the second significant complaint against him in a single month. But producers believed they could salvage the season. They reworked scenes and trimmed fights in an attempt to keep the tone professional. But behind the scenes, editors were worried. They stated that essentially no usable film available that did not feature ranting, altercations, or walk-offs. One post-production assistant noted, "We had to cut around a lot. We had the impression that we were editing a disaster area." As usual, Elizabeth found herself in the center. Insiders claimed that she tried to keep the scheme going, calm Andrei and serve as a liaison between the team and him. She nevertheless grew obviously agitated. According to reports, she said to a staff member, "I don't know how much longer I can keep doing this." The employee later characterized her as frustrated, defeated, and fatigued during a tearful lunch break. By episode 17, TLC administration was already monitoring the situation. They corresponded via email. Calls were arranged. Behind the doors of the meeting room, a conversation began. In what way would they be taken off the program? Would it be possible to continue filming without endangering the actors or crew? Were the risks starting to outweigh the ratings? The answer became more clear with each passing day. Then came the night that determined their destiny. The actors were filming one of the final group segments of the season, a wrap-up scene meant to come before the reveal. Everyone knew it would be intense, but none could have predicted the sequence of events that were about to occur. Andrei and a production supervisor got into a fight after he said the staff was manipulating his plot and scheming against him. The manager attempted to calm things down, but Andrei became irate. The entire team froze as he advanced with such ferocity. Several witnesses said that what happened next forced TLC to shut down the set right away. Andrei's outburst made a number of employees feel insecure. According to reports, Elizabeth begged him to quit. The team, who were obviously terrified, described the situation as chaotic, out of control, and the point at when everything changed. Eventually, she sobbed as she departed the stage, informing the filmmakers that was no longer able to do this. Security pulled a few people off the stage. For the remainder of the evening, production was suspended. Within hours of the filing of the most serious incident report to date, emails were sent to TLC management at the highest levels. By the next morning, the conversation was no longer hypothetical. The question was how quickly TLC could remove Andrei and Elizabeth, not if they should be removed at all. Producers and TLC executives called an urgent Zoom conference. The contracts with the cast were reviewed by lawyers. Safety problems were noted. Incident reports were collected. Everyone was in agreement that TLC would never work with Andrei and Elizabeth again. There would be no last programs demonstrating their departure or news release. The network wanted to discreetly and amicably sever ties in order to avoid another public controversy. The instructions were simple. Take them out of previews. Take them out of next promotions. Take away their availability for an interview. Additionally, avoid bringing up their leaving in public. The silence was intentional. The absence was deliberate. When the cast filmed the tell-all, Andrei and Elizabeth weren't there. Producers told the host to continue without acknowledging their plot, and for the first time in the franchise's history, a key duo was abruptly fired in the middle of a season with no explanation. The supporters couldn't understand. Rumors started to spread. Social media was filled with theories. A few believed that the couple had resigned on their own initiative. Some thought TLC had simply moved on. However, it was unexpected that a series of behind-the-scenes incidents would lead to one of the most abrupt and dramatic bans the firm has ever issued. Elizabeth apparently tried to negotiate with the network in secret after finding out about the ban. She emailed a producer, hoping to salvage anything, asking for clarification and a discussion. But by that point, the decision had already been made. According to insiders, Andrei's reaction was one of shock and anger, accusing the network of betrayal, censorship, and manipulation. But the door was closed. The network knew deep down that this was risky. There were differing views among fans on the couple. Everyone watched, albeit some loved their mayhem and others hated it. There would be a gap in the show's drama machine if they were eliminated entirely. But more crucial were liability, safety, and crew morale. And then came the final blow. Andrei. A private statement that circulated throughout TLC's production department stated that and Elizabeth were officially deemed ineligible for future involvement in any TLC franchise program, which was the network's courteous way of stating that they were forbidden for life. Thus, without any final confession, resolution, or fanfare, Andrei and Elizabeth disappeared forever from the 90-day Fiancé cosmos. The chaos that was taking place behind the scenes was completely different from what viewers saw on TV. The Concealed. Part 2 will uncover the facts TLC did its best to hide, including film, staff testimony, contract violations, and the moment the network realized the couple was a liability they could no longer afford. Only a tiny, painstakingly edited part of the insanity simmering beneath Season 9's surface was seen to viewers. Emergency staff meetings, uncut footage, hurried production notes, and a long list of incidents that the network surreptitiously collected, like evidence in a courtroom, were all included. Of the much more sinister image that was emerging in the background. TLC executives stopped wondering if Andrei and Elizabeth were an issue by the last few weeks of Season 9. Instead, they wanted to know how the situation had become so bad without anyone noticing. It all began when filming began months ago. Production assistants collected daily complaints about blown-out confrontations, delays, walkouts, and behavior that deviated from the expectations of the actors. But the uncut, unfiltered footage was the real problem. There were hundreds of hours of unscreened material. Several insiders claimed that the unreleased moments revealed a shocking, unvarnished picture of the couple's chemistry. Off-camera tempers blazed hotter than anything they did on camera during frequent altercations with crew members. Confrontations much more intense than viewers had ever witnessed, and emotional breakdowns deemed too delicate to show. At its core was Andrei's unpredictable rage. Of almost all incidents. While recording episode 12, a scene that was meant to depict a simple family discussion escalated into a heated argument one evening, nearly causing the cameraman to drop his equipment. A boom operator reportedly recoiled when Andrei struck a kitchen island with his fist. Elizabeth tried to sue him because she was so overwhelmed and on the edge of tears, but the stress was too much. Producers, Andrei claimed, were tampering with the story and making his family into villains. When they stepped in to dissipate the tension, the entire scene was edited out of the final cut, not because it wasn't dramatic, but because it was too risky, too raw, and too real to be included. But rather than Andrei and Elizabeth, the most heated footage was between Andrei and the crew. Insiders claim that the collection of unreleased video has everything from heated conversations with field producers to situations where crew members had to physically distance themselves from him. In one case, a lighting technician reported feeling intimidated when Andrei approached him during a disagreement about a designated spot. In another, a female producer sobbed as she left the room after being verbally harassed regarding scheduling. Although these incidents were never broadcast, they were all timestamped, documented, and logged in the production logs. Rather than creating drama, TLC was setting a record for liability protection. Elizabeth's emotional state deteriorated over the course of the season. She was frequently seen sobbing when taking breaks in her vehicle. "I feel trapped between the show and the man I love," she reportedly told a staff member, according to multiple employees. Even makeup artists, who often act as unofficial therapists for cast members, expressed concern over her anxiety. She often seemed tense, like she was getting ready for something, according to one stylist. She was always on the lookout. The Human Resources Division of TLC eventually became involved, which is infrequent in the creation of reality TV unless something extremely serious is occurring. The HR staff began advising bosses on potential legal matters after reviewing the growing volume of incident reports. The cast or bet scheme was then formally categorized as a safety risk. That word alone significantly altered how the couple was perceived by the network. Instead of being a source of spectators, they were suddenly viewed as a potential threat. One of the most significant events occurred during the executive review. A senior producer presented network executives a 23-minute composite of uncut footage that broke down the production over several weeks. A portion of Andrei's speech was so loud in the montage that the microphone clipped. Crew members fleeing or raising their hands defensively. Elizabeth sobs quietly behind a door while her microphone captures her voice. The scenes that Andrei interrupted are still being undone by the production. For crew members talked about why they no longer felt comfortable collaborating with him in a meeting. Executives were reportedly stunned by the scenario. A person with knowledge of the conversation said, "This is becoming a liability rather than a spectacle." Despite the network's anxiety over the tape, staff complaints finally sealed the couple's demise. One CEO whispered, "This can't continue." The first formal complaint was made by a field producer who claimed that Andrei's behavior made the workplace unfriendly. Surroundings. In the weeks that followed, 3 other crew members submitted their own incident reports. They all gave examples of times when they felt intimidated or inferior. One report even mentioned the need to take anxiety medication before filming because of the unpredictable nature of the location. TLC was still apprehensive. The show's character was deeply rooted in the franchise's reputation for complex storylines, turbulent relationships, and tremendous drama. But Andrei and Elizabeth was in a different position. Unlike reality TV, there was no artificial dramatization or stress. This was a developing problem that may ruin the entire production if ignored. The pivotal moment came during the final 2 weeks of production when the ensemble came together for a group section that was supposed to be straightforward. Instead, that specific day became the crucial piece of evidence in what some insiders later called Andrei's final case. It began rather casually. Typical talk, staged conversation, nothing unusual. But when a production supervisor instructed Andrei to stay on course, something went awry. Several witnesses said he turned around so quickly and violently that half the room froze. In a desperate attempt to calm him, Elizabeth placed a hand on his arm, but he backed off as his tone became aggressive, accusing the staff of scheming to harm his reputation. According to reports, a number of employees came forward, unsure if they required to intervene as the supervisor attempted to defuse the situation while Andrei allegedly closed the distance between them. One camera operator signaled to cease rolling. A boom operator let go of his equipment. There was silence on the set, which is never a good sign in television production. Then came Event 47, as it would be referred to in internal documents. Production was immediately halted due to Andrei's outburst. Terrified and embarrassed, Elizabeth sobbed as she walked off the set. A medical professional followed her to evaluate her state. The supervisor filed formal safety complaints, the most serious type allowed in the production system. The last-minute executive meeting that evening was justified by HR using this grievance. At that meeting, it was determined that neither Andrei nor Elizabeth would return. Not for the tell-all, not for any future seasons, and not for any TLC spin-offs. They were done. The next 48 hours were filled with silent activity behind the scenes. Producers got emails informing them of to remove the pair from any upcoming advertisements. Editors were told not to include their most explosive video so as not to create public controversy. Public relations prepared responses in case the media asked, but none were ever made public. At the time the story was filmed, the production schedule had already planned for Andrei and Elizabeth's absence. They removed the chairs from the set. Their section outline was removed from the rundown. They shouldn't be mentioned on. The host was informed of the broadcast. The fact that TLC instructed the other cast members not to discuss the pair in public is even more shocking. They weren't fired, they were simply eliminated and wiped off. Behind the scenes, though, the consequences persisted. Additional footage, including scenes shot on days that had been so busy that editors had initially hardly given them a glance, surfaced during post-production. These raw files contained further occurrences that validated the network's suspicions, such as confrontations packed with offensive words, aggressive stance, and emotionally draining exchanges with Elizabeth that were interrupted. "I don't know if I can keep doing this. I no longer feel secure with my family in this setting," she said in one image of herself sitting alone on a couch, her eyes red and her voice trembling. The video, which was never shown, convinced even the most hesitant executives that cutting ties was the right thing to do. Meanwhile, crew members quietly cheered the network's decision. A few stated that they were no longer afraid of confrontation. Others admitted that they had considered quitting the program altogether if the couple remained. According to one crew member, "It wasn't worth the stress. Any TV show that makes you feel unsafe is not worth watching." In addition, TLC updated its internal policies behind closed doors and secretly imposed stricter rules for crew safety, dispute escalation, and cast conduct in later seasons. Evidently inspired by the cast event, the ban was officially enforced by a private internal memo that used the strictest language TLC had ever used for a cast member removal, declaring the couple permanently ineligible for future participation. They were not aware of the additional turmoil occurring behind the scenes, though, and Elizabeth allegedly attempted to speak with producers in private after the ban to obtain clarification and find closure, while Andrei allegedly threatened. Their termination was not the end of the narrative. The morning following the now famous Incident 47, the production studio was filled with a sense of tension that only arises when a show is in crisis. The crew, who had worked on 90 Day Fiancé for years, arrived early but spoke quietly. Producers hovered behind closed doors, assistants carried clipboards marked urgent in red ink, and somewhere on the set, TLC executives joined an emergency conference call on the second floor that would decide Andrea and Elizabeth's fate for all time. Normally, a single explosion on set would result in a temporary suspension or mediation session, but this time, the network had to follow protocols that were rarely used. The supervisor's safety complaint, the most serious kind that could be filed, prompted legal teams to start looking through footage. HR demanded written statements from everyone in attendance, and senior producers were asked to confirm the accuracy of. Producers detailed the final moments before the shutdown, including the shouting, the aggressive posture, Elizabeth's tearful exit, and the way staff instinctively stepped back. It was the kind of response typically reserved for scandals that break the internet, but this time it was for a meltdown the public didn't even know happened. One executive reportedly asked, "Was anyone physically touched?" "No," said a producer, "but it was close enough." This was the strongest disciplinary action the network had ever taken against a main storyline couple. As one producer later stated, this wasn't about making TV. The decision was unanimous and required the couple to be removed immediately, not at the end of the season, not after the tell-all now, and to have no further involvement in any TLC franchise or filming of any kind. This was about safeguarding both our workers and the company. After the ban was finalized, the cleanup started. Web producers were told to stop scheduling Instagram promos that featured Andrei. Editors were told to cut around important scenes in the remaining episodes. Previously approved scenes with Andrei and Elizabeth were abruptly flagged for re-evaluation. Technicians scrubbed footage, removing audio clips that might hint at the off-camera incident, and the couple's names were taken out of digital press packets for season 9. Then came the tell-all preparation. Normally, Andrei and Elizabeth would have been in the spotlight, their segments always generating the highest viewer engagement, the most arguments, the wildest reactions. However, this time, they weren't just cut from the outline, their entire presence was erased. Their chairs were never set up, their story was never mentioned, and their names never appeared. They never issued a statement in case bloggers or tabloids noticed their disappearance. TLC wanted silence because they thought it was the safest course of action, but silence from a reality TV network is louder than a scandal. Fans quickly noticed their absence in the previews, and comments exploded across the show. For the first time in franchise history, a major couple was scrubbed from a tell-all as if they never existed. Producers told the rest of the cast to keep quiet about them behind the scenes, and if they did, the segment would be res-hot or edited out. Social media. Where are Andrei and Elizabeth? Why aren't they in the tell-all promo? Did they quit? Are they being replaced? Some people thought they were filming a covert spin-off, while others thought they were negotiating for more money. However, behind the scenes, the couple had already been banned for life. Meanwhile, the couple's reaction was taking completely different forms inside their home, with Elizabeth, according to someone close to production, being quiet but devastated. According to insiders, Andrei reacted angrily, threatening to shut down the network, claiming he had proof of manipulation, lies, and sabotage. Elizabeth allegedly reached out privately to a trusted producer, hoping for closure, asking for an explanation, but the producer wanted to respond but was legally unable to do so. Elizabeth was essentially shut out from the people she had worked with for years, and was told that higher-ups were reviewing their involvement with the network and that no details could be disclosed. The couple's emails were routed through lawyers, their phone numbers were blocked, and the door was shut. Weeks after the show was filmed without them, the tension increased as fans noticed their complete absence, not a single scene, not a single reference, and online rumors became raging. None of these claims were confirmed, but the outburst was so intense that TLC's legal department advised producers to avoid further contact unless absolutely necessary. Nothing aired, nothing leaked, and TLC remained completely silent. Inside the network, the ban was locked into place with a confidential document known internally as a PIP Code 9 removal notice, which is the equivalent of being permanently exiled from the TLC universe. Cast members who receive this classification are barred from filming, from appearing in future spin-offs, and from appearing in any drama. Others thought Andrew threatened to sue, and some even thought TLC was saving them for a dramatic surprise. While the network believed the situation was over, it was just getting started behind the scenes. Andrea and Elizabeth were banned from being featured in anniversary specials and from being considered for even small cameo appearances. They were given the highest level of ban possible, a Category 5 ineligibility. Only a few cast members in TLC history have ever reached that level, and all for safety or legal liability reasons. Found more material from the early episodes, moments that had been missed during the season's pandemonium. In one clip, Elizabeth was heard whispering to someone on the phone, "I don't want them to film this," on her lapel microphone. Her voice was trembling as she said, "I can't do this right now." Shortly after, a crew member came up to her and offered her water and tissues, encouraging her to take a break. TLC decided the video was too delicate and emotional to broadcast, but on the inside, it confirmed what? In another clip shot weeks before the final meltdown, Andrei was seen arguing with a producer over scheduling, accusing the producer of pushing buttons, twisting narratives, and trying to portray him as a villain. The producer tried to defuse the situation by clarifying that storyline decisions are made from above, not by individual staff, but the network already feared the couple's participation had become emotionally unsafe. Andrei refused to accept that, and editors flagged the clip and read the code to never air again. Meanwhile, HR quietly began an internal review of the production environment for Season 9, interviewing lighting technicians, camera operators, makeup artists, sound engineers, interns, and even security personnel. Several staff members revealed that they had asked not to be scheduled with Andrei because they were stressed, uncomfortable, and afraid of unforeseen confrontations, and one staffer acknowledged having recurrent. The internal report was damning, concluding that the production environment during Andrei and Elizabeth's season was unstable, reactive, and repeatedly escalated by the actions of one cast member with secondary emotional harm to other participants, including Elizabeth herself. One person said they considered leaving the industry altogether if the situation persisted, and another said they experienced anxiety before filming days involving the couple. TLC executives made the final decision after reviewing the findings. Though their storyline would end abruptly and silently, buried in editing rooms, sealed in digital archives, and locked behind legal agreements, the couple would never again appear on 90 Day Fiancé, not in flashbacks, spin-offs, or cameos. However, the story did not end quietly outside the network, as fans continued to speculate after the season aired. Some thought the couple had stepped away for personal reasons, while others assumed they were negotiating better contract terms. However, the real insiders knew the truth. It was the worst meltdown we've ever had. He crossed every line you can cross. She broke down more times than anyone realized. The network had no choice. They're gone. Permanently gone. The ban became an unwritten rule within the franchise. New producers joining the team were briefed about the incident as part of their orientation. This was the truth that TLC would never publicly acknowledge, but that quietly spread among producers, assistants, and staff in whispered conversations. To the outside world, however, the silence seemed mysterious. Fans expected answers, they wanted drama, they wanted closure, but closure was never part of the plan. Inside TLC, silence was the shield, the absence was strategic, the editing was deliberate, and the decision to ban Andrei and Elizabeth from the franchise. Staff were instructed to deny access if the couple ever appeared at a studio or filming location. Crew members were warned not to discuss the details publicly because the legal agreements surrounding the ban were ironclad. Was created for the safety of all those who had to stand behind the cameras, not for ratings. Their final plot would never air. Their explosion,